Sam, and I'm making this video about Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. It's the male, expressive, masculine quality of Mercury coming forth. It's an air sign. Air is about movement, it's about space, it's about freedom. Big part of the Gemini equation is to be free, to not be bogged down, and free to explore our interests and what we enjoy, the quality of enjoyment. Big key word for Mercury. We're supposed to enjoy life, and through enjoyment we learn. Notice those things that you enjoy and how they're the things you're the most intelligent about, because you pursue them whether you get any benefit or not from them. And so this is a big quality of Mercury, especially expressed through Gemini. This dog has no interest in me. Especially as it's expressed through Gemini. Remember, Virgo was more serious, and it brings that playful quality of Mercury into a tamasic realm of seriousness and not just being playful. Well, Gemini, Mercury is full-on playful, okay? And one of their challenges is to not just want to remain silly and immature, but there's also, even more so than Virgo, there's a potential for enormous genius in Gemini because the mind is really fast and it's not burdened by the serious problems of the world often. Virgo wants everything to be practical, and it slows it down to where we can really go deep, but Gemini is very fast. So it's that Rajasic quality of Gemini. Now Mercury also rules the fourth house, so it shows where Gemini really wants to just do what they feel like doing. It's that simple. The first lord, which is our identity, also rules the fourth house of how I feel. So one thing about Gemini, and one of the reasons why they change quickly, or they're following their heart. And again, it's unusual to think of this, but Gemini and Sagittarius really follow their heart, even though they're said to be like intellectual or this thing or that thing. Yes, they're intellectual, but they follow their heart. What feels good and what they feel like doing, that's what they do. And if something starts to impinge on what they feel, they will leave it, because they want to be free to pursue what they feel like pursuing, what they feel like exploring. It's much more intellectual for Gemini, because it's an air sign. For Sagittarius, of course, it was much more inspirational and more about actions, like pursuing different things that inspire us. For Gemini, it's things like how things work. That's the nature of Mercury. How does this work? Well, I want to look into that. So besides Mercury as the first and fourth lord, which shows them exploring what feels good to them, the moon rules the second house of values. Again, the second house is often something that's a very solid, stable structure in our life. It's our family, it's our values, which don't change very quickly. They come first from our childhood, and then we kind of change them slowly, and then at some point we kind of get set in our ways. Of all the signs, Gemini is probably the least set in its ways. It's one of the reasons why they stay youthful, they look youthful. The moon rules the second house, which shows their values are always changing. Moon is the most changeable. And sometimes their values change based on how they feel in the moment. This feels good. Okay, let me see what that's about. That's to get them involved in experimenting and learning and gathering knowledge about life. That's what Gemini is here to do. They're the great signs of gathering knowledge about life and then reporting it. They're the great reporters. Here's how this thing works. And they're all excited to report it. But the moon, as ruling the second house, shows their values are very fluid. Their values are not as stable and solid as others. And again, it's always a benefit and a curse, because if they could be very impressionable, and they're very impressed upon by their company if other things especially aren't more solid. So you'll also find that very kind of innocent, the very innocent kind of mind with the moon ruling the second house. The second house is very close to the surface, what we notice about a person. So the sun rules the third house, and of course the third house is it's basically like our ego and our interests and our will. Of course, Gemini has a very strong will. The symbol is the man with the club, and the woman with playing the musical instrument. Okay, that's the symbol of Gemini. And you know, the main symbol of the man with the club is Mars, as ruling the 6th and 11th house, and then Venus playing the musical instrument. But the sun also has a lot to do with that power to pursue our interests, right? Wherever Leo falls, it shows a lot of our energy and what we're focusing on. So with Gemini, it's our interests. This is why they get so much strength and power from pursuing their interests. And again, the sun is also, or I should say Leo is also a very consistent sign. It's the consistent power in our life. So for Gemini, it's I'm consistently doing what I feel like doing, what feels good, what I enjoy, 3rd house. So Gemini in some ways has one of the healthiest egos in the zodiac, but it could often be these strong opinions taking the place of authentic intelligence. Again, this is how the 3rd house is an illusion. For Gemini, it's strong opinions. Oh, I figured this out, and this is me. These opinions and these ideas and these things I figured out are me, 3rd house. Whereas what's really them is that freedom to keep exploring and not necessarily fall and have an opinion, which is the 3rd house. But you'll see this quality of Gemini, very strong ideas, and they pursue them, and they pursue their interests with the full power of the sun. So then we have Venus, which rules the 5th and the 12th houses. Now we're getting into that woman playing the musical instrument part of them. One of the main things to understand about Gemini, intensely creative, very creative. Of course, Mercury is creative. You often don't hear that about Mercury. You hear Mercury is like, you know, ideas and stuff, and you know, even I just said it, but Mercury is actually wanting to create something with it, like wanting to explain something or write something or do something. But Venus gives that aesthetic and that desire to want to make things beautiful. Underneath it all, Gemini is really they have like the heart of an artist. Most Gemini people have a pretty refined aesthetic sense. They're almost all interested in some kind of music or art or something, because Venus rules the 5th house, right? The 5th house is the house of beauty. It's the house of, I should say, it's the house of our heart's desire. It's what we love. And they love beautiful things. That could include beautiful women, beautiful men, beautiful art, beautiful music, beautiful nature. They love beauty. And in fact, they also spend a lot of their energy and time on it because it also rules the 12th house. And this can also get into things like, you know, sexual fantasizing. The 12th house is like fantasy, right? It's like where we kind of fantasize about something. That's really what the 12th house is, like the dream house. So again, one of the functions of creativity is to imagine things that you don't have yet. So one of the reasons Gemini is so creative is they have this great imagination and this heart's desire and this love of beauty, which is Venus ruling the 5th, but then they imagine and they fantasize about it in the 12th. Now again, you could say sexual fantasizing, but it's also imagining like a beautiful song or a beautiful painting. Artists have a great imagination. They have to kind of imagine it first, right? So Venus is that very creative planet that shows where they're also willing to, let's say, spend money on what they find inspiring or what they want to create. An artist has to spend money, which is 12th house, loss of resources, on what they find beautiful. Gemini will do that. So Venus is really that very refined aesthetic that they kind of fantasize and daydream about, this very beautiful, this world of, this beautiful world that they live in. And then again, they imagine also, where does it come from? Oh, I want to experience that. I want to explore that. So that desire to understand as a Gemini person is also, mixed with that love of beauty and that imagination of Venus. So Mercury, Venus are always related this way when you look at their house rulerships. So then we get to big old Mars, and we start getting into some difficult, a little more stressful energy for Gemini for sure. Mars is probably their most difficult planet for sure. It rules the 6th and the 11th houses. It's the man with the club, and it's also a natural malefic, okay? It rules 2 malefic houses, and they're also both cruel houses. 6th and 11th house are both cruel, and Mars is a cruel planet. So it's got everything going for it that can be difficult for any ascendant. So Mars shows that kind of willful nature, that capacity and that tendency for strong opinions to creep in and replace curiosity. You want to understand that, people that want to argue with you and have these strong opinions, that's not intelligence. Intelligence is not strong opinions. It doesn't mean that once you gather intelligence, you're not going to have a strong opinion about something. Of course you will, because once you learn something, then you understand right from wrong and whatnot. But it's the tendency to want to fight over it, or to battle over it, or to even get in a certain amount of intellectual arrogance. And then when you see things not being done correctly, Gemini can get in there and tell you I'm going to set you straight, that kind of nature. And it also shows a kind of because the 6th house is where we need to be of service, and so is the 11th house. But it shows where there's also all of this hard work and effort that slows them down. So, for example, especially like 6th house, Scorpio, which is water, and 11th house Aries, which is like ambitious, sort of conquering the world, which Gemini is really, neither of those things are very interesting to them. They slow down the fast Gemini mind and make them have to serve or fight, like serve or fight. Again, what Gemini really likes to do is to be able to explore things, have things be fun, light, easy. And now I have somebody challenging me, which is Mars. I'm going to have to either argue with them, or defeat them, or learn how to be of service. It's just hard for them because they want to use their information. They bring out their information to want to take on the challenge, and it gets to an argumentative thing. So Mars is a tricky planet for Gemini for sure. Then we get to Jupiter, which rules the 7th and the 10th houses. Well, last thing about Mars, it shows where Gemini really needs to learn how to be more of service. And have the courage, which is Mars, to face their own lack of strength and not fight over things that they've already figured out, for lack of a better way to put it. And then we get to Jupiter, which rules 7th and 10th houses. It really shows in many ways how Gemini can be really blessed with partners and with work and duties and responsibilities if they get into them. Again, one of the main things about Gemini is they want to be free, that kind of freedom to move around. When they make a commitment to partners and to responsibilities and duties, it's a great source of wisdom in their life. It's where they can really grow, and it's where they have a lot of luck in their life. So when they get out of this desire to just just enjoy life and have it be fun and enjoyable, and they actually step up and take responsibility, for example, which is 10th house, they have a very blessed career because their natural skills, because they're naturally very skilled, their natural communication skills, their natural love of beauty, and that Venus ruling the 5th house, very good stuff. Really emerges when they step up and take responsibility. They can figure things out really easily, they can adjust, they're very good with people. But they need a higher purpose than just enjoying life. So Jupiter shows when they connect to a higher purpose in their work and in their duties and responsibilities, it's very blessed. Same way with 7th Lord, which is about where we show up and face the other person in a relationship, not just expect that it's going to be fun all the time, and then once it stops being fun, then they want to leave, right? So when you actually show up and face the partner, which is the 7th house, rather than run away when it gets difficult, then their relationships can be very blessed. So you see, obviously Jupiter is very important. It's ruling the 7th and the 10th houses. Both of those areas are really blessed. They're two areas where we need to be responsible and show up and not run away. So it shows where if they do it, there's a lot of blessings that come their way. And Saturn is the last one, and Saturn is another really auspicious planet for Gemini. It's a great example of Saturn being a Dharma planet. It rules the 8th house and the 9th house. So of course the 8th house is those things we can't control, our vulnerabilities, our fears, life changing and transforming really quickly, and the awareness that we're not in control. To most people, that's they don't like it. They really shun that. Gemini's like, well, of course that's the way it is. And they learn the most through life's ups and downs, breaks and changes. Their great life lessons come through that, which is the 9th house. And their capacity to adapt and to change and to face those harsh realities, quote, is maybe the best in the zodiac. Because Saturn not only rules the 8th house, he rules the 9th house. So that shift between the 8th and 9th house is where our vulnerabilities and stresses and fears turn into the great life lessons and make us, really connect with higher teachings. And it being Saturn, it's not just 8th and 9th house, it's also Saturn rules them both, is a big blessing. So Gemini can really connect with higher teachings, higher wisdom, and adapt to life very easily. So you'll often see where Gemini, this is why they're one of the most adaptable and one of the most changeable, and they can really, over time, grow in richness and in understanding and in wisdom. And often when they're younger, they don't have enough life experience, they haven't gone through enough ups and downs yet to have enough wisdom. So through life's ups and downs, they really gain as much wisdom or more wisdom than anyone in the zodiac, at least potentially. Obviously it has to do with Saturn in the chart or whatever, but the potential is really there because Saturn ruling the 8th and the 9th houses. Fear of death, things ending, great catastrophes. Gemini's like, yep, that's the way it is, and it makes them humble, which is the higher qualities of Saturn. It gives them a lot of reverence for life and appreciation. Again, the real high qualities of Saturn. And it grounds them. It makes them say, stop wasting time. You have to commit to a career or this or that. It makes them grow up. Again, because Gemini can just want to stay young and childish and foolish. Saturn says, look, one day you're going to die. You need to understand this. You need to take this seriously and really commit to something. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. So then all of that information gathering and skills can come to bear in something worthwhile as the 9th Lord, and then they can impact the career and whatnot in the 10th, and they start to grow and evolve. So that's Gemini.